Guru Nation, welcome to episode 179.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, and random musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. Chris is back as a co-host. We've been doing one a week with you.
I do about every, I think, 7th one, 8th one, something like that.
Okay.
Is that one a week?
Yeah. So what's this one about?
I don't know.
You don't?
You left it up to me and I didn't decide.
You didn't?
No.
Do you think we should do one on how to start a site, or
Sure.
with
Let's just do that.
detailed instructions? Or do you want to... Well, let's just do that one, and then I'll do the other one on how to be a tyrant or not a tyrant when running a site.
Working on a monarchy or a democracy?
Right, or socialism. Can you have a socialist site? I think you can. Everyone gets paid the same, no matter what they do.
Profit sharing.
That's more capitalism.
Well, it's kind of socialism too,
Yeah,
right? Because everybody is equal.
If they're equal.
Right.
Alright, details. How to open a site. So, perfect. This guy just emailed me back literally 2 seconds ago.
Wow.
So I didn't have to search for the email.
It's a omen.
Okay. I have opened a new research company and currently in the process of registering all applicable registration. With this, first of all, let me preface this with it doesn't matter what you do. That's the easy part.
Mm.
Registering.
I assume he means to like with drug debt.
No.
What's he mean by registering?
No, he's not even getting into the nuts and bolts of
so
what the business actually does. It's just how to set up a business. EIN number.
Okay.
Done.
Oh, I see.
A DUNS number.
So he's got his business license, he's got all his federal paperwork in order.
Right.
Okay.
Nothing to do with actually working on the business, which, by the way, and I told him, is the hard part. My response: the hard part is finding the studies and producing clean data. We're going to get through some of the other stuff he mentioned.
Okay.
So, EIN number, he says done. DUNS number, he says done. Takes 30 days.
Well, I saw this email.
Yeah. NPI number, registered and waiting on processing. Trust I did it correctly.
Hopefully he verified that his doctor didn't already have an NPI number.
Explain.
Well, I'm not really...
What is an NPI number?
I forget what it stands
National
for.
Provider
Identification. Yeah, I think so.
So what is this? What is it, like in a nutshell?
Again, honestly, I don't really know the details about the NPI number. I just know more often than not, it'll be requested either in the feasibility process or at some point in obtaining a study. But the purpose of the NPI number is not for research. It's not exclusive to research. It's all doctors that accept, I think, insurance in some fashion have to have an NPI number. I think. Again, don't mark my words on this because I'm not 100% sure of that. But I think if you've ever accepted insurance, you have to have an NPI number. I think. I'm sure a quick Google search would tell you the purpose of an NPI number.
Okay, so it's for physicians.
I think if you've accepted insurance at any time, you have to have an NPI number. But I'm not sure, so I'm going to Google it.
He's got more. FEI number. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, federal. It's the same thing as the EIN.
Right. So he's asking, where do I register? I've not found much info. It's the same thing as the EIN. They're just
two different.
Synonymous.
Yes.
GDUFA. This I've had Darshan on before. We talk about GDUFA.
Yeah, you need that if you're going to work on any genetic drug testing.
And so generic drug testing.
Yeah.
So any study that involves generics is going to ask for your GDUFA number.
Yeah.
This was very popular a couple years ago, like in 2014, like post-recession when we were getting out of the recession.
Okay, so from Google, the NPI is a single identification number that will be issued by the federal government to healthcare providers. It is intended to improve the efficiency of the healthcare system and help to reduce fraud and abuse. So you sure already have one. It's automatically issued by the federal government, so you don't need to apply for one, it sounds like.
Well, He said, registered and waiting on processing. Trust I did it correctly.
Well, I don't think you did. It sounds like it's issued automatically by the federal government.
Okay.
Well, but I could be mistaken there. Maybe do you need to apply for it? Maybe this guy's straight out of this doctor, guy or gal, straight out of school.
And then GDUFA, again, anything that has to do with the generic.
Yep.
He says, I believe I have to have FDA FEI number and a DUNS number in order to apply.
For generic.
Yes.
So
and those are like only 5% of the studies. They used to be more.
Right. And then there might be more in the future. They all work in waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ebbs and flows to all types of trials. So
GDUFA is generic drug user fee amendments.
right. So if you're going to work on any generic testing, then you have to have this number. And again, like Dan said, there's not a lot of those studies, but I see a few a year.
Mm-hmm. So the good thing is you don't need any of this to get started. None. I mean, you need an LLC or a S corp or a C corp.
So you need your EIN.
So you're gonna get an EIN by doing that.
Right.
Here's why you should operate under a corporation, which LLCs fall under that. Liability.
Mm-hmm.
Patient sues you, doctor sues you, pharma sues you, CRO, anyone sues you. It's not you, it's your company.
Yes, and your personal assets are protected.
Yeah,
to a degree.
You'd have to be crazy to operate in clinical research. Not that it's very litigious, because it's not, but you'd have to be crazy to operate any business without a company protecting you.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it for you. Like,
but it's not a 100% guarantee of not having your personal assets
correct. And
involved in a lawsuit.
And that's called piercing the corporate veil.
Even if you don't do that, though, I've read it. They can still sometimes.
They can sue you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they'll win. Like that, it's more likely that if there is a
and again, neither Dan or I are attorneys.
We're not attorneys, so contact an attorney. We're just giving you like Cliff Notes versions of suggestions.
Right.
Okay. You don't want to operate outside of having a company, and when you do, make sure that you treat it as a separate entity, so that you can't be accused of piercing the corporate veil.
Which you used to do frequently, I believe.
Yeah, despite reading a book, Ink and Grow Rich, that's INC and Grow Rich. It's a play on the Think and Grow Rich. I didn't do it frequently, but I did it a lot. And that was when I was a sole owner. But even then,
it's dangerous.
You shouldn't do that, yeah. My accountant, Scott, he told me not to do that. But especially when you start having business partners, you shouldn't do that even more so then. And we've got the situations of that occurring as well.
Yeah, still.
And, okay. So, detailed steps. First thing is incorporate. You're going to get an EIN number. A DUNS number, I don't think is important at all.
It is.
Why is it important?
Well, it's not important initially. Right? Again, it gets back to doing generic testing. In my opinion, you don't want to limit yourself in your capacity to take on any trial.
Right, so you need a DUNS number
eventually
to get a GDUFA.
Right. So I think you should get one. I don't think it's necessary right away. I mean...
So this is done in Bradstreet, right?
Right.
Okay.
In order to apply for the GDUFA, you have to have a DUNS number.
I eventually get one for all my companies, but it's not something urgent.
No, I would agree. It's not urgent, but again...
And if it wasn't for the GDUFA, I would never get one.
Right.
A DNB number, right? Done in Bradstreet?
Yep.
Yeah, that's so you can get company credit, and guess what, folks? Any small business, even if you establish company credit, you still have to personally co-sign most things.
Yep.
Right? You're not Apple, you're not Amazon, you're not Facebook, you're not IKEA. You're
not any S&P 500 company.
No, you're WeHo Clinical Research. That is a real name of our latest site in West Hollywood.
Yes.
Great name, great logo. Chris is going to spend most of his time there.
Laughing, yes.
Okay, so get the LLC, get the EIN number, get a DUNS, I guess. Your physician should already have an NPI number. FEI number looks like the same as the EIN. Are there any other numbers, registrations I need to consider other than state registrations not listed above?
Well, you need a business license.
You need a business license for your city or county, and you need a CLIA, either a certificate or a waiver.
Yep.
Okay. Now,
And there's other certificates as well. GCP, AIDA.
and we're going to get into all of that, yeah.
Alright.
So, all of that is way more than what you need to start. Now the real work occurs, because what we just went through are just forms. There's no work you're actually putting in here. It's just filling out forms, paying fees, getting numbers, getting registration. That's nothing. Just because you can do that doesn't mean you're going to be a successful site owner. Now the real work begins, which is getting a PI. Hopefully you have one. If you don't have one, I would start there before worrying about DUNS numbers and GDUFAs.
From his email, I would assume he has the PI. He said he's applying for the NPI number for this doctor, which I assume is his PI.
Right. So now, after that, you need studies. And now is where the work comes in. So, get a study. And we've done webinars, we've done 2-hour videos on this, we've done 2-minute videos on this, we've done 20-minute videos on this. I've wrote a book on this. Get studies.
Yep.
Hire us or don't. Doesn't matter. Get studies.
Yeah, you're not going to earn any income if you don't have a study in clinical research.
0. So you can have a million GDUFAs and no studies. You just wasted your time.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So next is what I recommend. So you get the PI. Even before getting a PI or a study, I think you should set up a website. You go to Squarespace, you go anywhere. It's much easier when you're reaching out to doctors to join your group.
Sure.
They all ask for your website. Send me more info on your website. Do you have a website? They ask for these things.
Sure.
Business card, a flyer, you should get a logo. These are the things you need, okay? The website also comes in handy when you start applying for studies, because these sponsors will start Googling your site name, and if they don't find a website for you, or if you don't have an email, a professional email with your domain name in the email, like Chris at BRKTHRU. Mine is not professional at the end at the Clinical Trials Guru, but I have an email for every site I'm with too.
Right.
So on the rare occasion that I biz dev for a site, I have a professional email.
So do you think that they really care if it's dan@gmail.com?
Yes.
You think they really care?
I think it matters.
Minutely, but it matters.
I think it matters. I think if
Matters a lot or a little, I'm asking.
if they're seeking a site at that moment, I don't think it matters. But if you're just going to be added to a list of...
And you're competing with many others.
Yep. And I think that's the majority of the cases.
Alright.
Every little bit helps, and why limit yourself? Just like the GDUFA thing. Why limit yourself when you can just pay $5 a month to G Suite to have an email? And that's a Gmail, but it's with your domain name.
Right.
So how to get the domain name? They want us to get very technical. Go to GoDaddy.com. Buy a domain name. It's $9 a year, $12 a year, depending on the whether it's a .com or a .ai or a .io, which are the most expensive.
IO's the most expensive.
From what I've seen, yeah.
Really? I don't think .com would be.
No, .coms are not. .coms. First of all the .coms are gone.
Right.
But so for IOs, they are that extension. That's the word I'm looking for. Is more expensive than a .com.
Interesting. Or .org.
.org is great. .net doesn't matter. Incorporate. So get the LLC or the corporation done. Make sure that the name is approved by your state, and then buy a domain name that closely matches your business name.
Or exactly.
The shorter the better.
Sure. Abbreviation.
So we have WeHoCR.com, which was available Can you believe that? We also have WeHo Research.
Yeah.
That was available. So we bought that. Then you can, once you have a domain name, you can get web hosting for your website. You can buy the hosting on GoDaddy and have somebody install WordPress or just build it on whatever platform that your designer chooses. I use Squarespace. I recommend you try Squarespace. It's hosting. I get nothing out of it. But they're professional. They cost a little more than GoDaddy hosting, but they look better. They have more capabilities, more user-friendly. You don't need to know how to program to create a nice website.
Mm-hmm.
So Squarespace, that's where you pay for your hosting. That's about $100 a year hosting.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the email. So you gotta get an email, get a G Suite. Okay, that's Gmail. It's $5 a month per user. When you first start out, you're probably just gonna have 2 users, the coordinator and the PI. And the PI is never gonna check their email unless you get one of those rare ones that does. So you're really just having it so that you have one when the sponsors ask.
Right.
But you still have to pay $5 for that. So after that,
Well, you don't necessarily though, right? Because can't you have an email address that just gets forwarded to another?
yeah. So you can auto forward, but sometimes that gets picked up by spam filters. It's better not to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, you can auto forward. Like for my breakthrough email, it's a pain in the ass to log in, as you know.
Yeah.
And you refuse to switch.
Don't refuse.
So I get those forwarded to my Guru email, just because I don't want to log into my breakthrough email.
Right.
And I couldn't find a way to figure it out on the phone, which is where I check my emails most of the time.
My point with G Suite is, say you need 10 email accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of which only 3 of those the user are actually going to access their email, right?
Right.
7 of those you don't have to pay for, right? You can just create those email addresses and they just automatically get forwarded to whoever you want them forwarded to.
Right.
The 3 that will automatically check.
Correct. That is correct.
So you only have to pay for 3 to have the 10.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now, that's all the technical stuff's out of the way. Then now you get into the, GCP, IATA.
You have to get prepared
NIH, all those
to fill out
certificates.
feasibility questionnaires.
So GCP, IATA, and NIH are all free. If you want those links, email me and I'll send you those links. I've been doing that for people. But you can just Google it.
I don't know. I've tried Googling. I know we have like 3 different GCP vendors for certificates. But I actually tried Googling it and I spent maybe 5 minutes doing it, but I couldn't find any free ones.
Which one did you search? GCP?
Yeah. Free GCP training. Free GCP certification.
On a side note, I'm looking to get ACRP certified. Did I tell you?
Yeah, you told me. We've been discussing this for a while.
And that's something you may want to consider too, but they will only allow you to get certified once you have 2 years of experience.
Yeah, but you could falsify that.
Sure. So, someone who doesn't know anything, they're gonna fail.
Sure.
You're gonna fail. It's a difficult test.
It's difficult.
I'm actually somewhat concerned whether I'll pass, because I'm not gonna study. I'm not studying, so
I'm going to laugh hard.
I might.
And I will laugh hard.
I honestly think it's 50-50. Because they ask you like weird.
Yes, things that you've never encountered.
Yeah, like they'll quote like cases,
or maybe,
precedents,
or maybe give you the definition of a CFR section and say, okay, which
and ask you what number it is or what that
Right.
means. Yeah. So I'm not gonna be able to Google it because you take it at a test center.
right,
So that's how I'll fail. I'll fail on the technicalities, not on the concepts.
right.
But it's tough. Like you're not gonna pass if you haven't been doing this for a while. So, but you don't need that. So GCP, NIH, IATA. Then you need a research clinic. You need equipment. You can do it in your doctor's office. I have a website.
That's preferred too, by the way.
Yeah, I have a website where you can look at every piece of equipment that you would need, the bare minimum equipment needed to get started, so go on the clinicaltrialsguru.com and see it. You wanted to talk about calibration a little
Well,
bit.
let's go back just real quick.
Okay.
When selecting a PI, it's preferred that your PI has their own private clinic, right?
Yes.
So that's your preferred option. It's not your only option, but it's your preferred option.
Correct. Thank you for bringing that up. So it's when, thank you, and we should have brought this up, when you're selecting a PI, you need, it's okay to get your first PI as someone who doesn't have a private practice, but you're going to have to figure out this issue of getting patients somehow.
Yep.
So eventually you will need a PI or a sub-I that has a private practice, an active private practice, and they're spending 100% of their time on the private practice.
It also shows.
And then you bring your research clinic to them in their private practice.
It shows better for site selection visits when you have an active office space with patients sitting in the lobby. It also saves on initial expenses as well,
Correct.
right? Because your PI is paying for the rent and the internet and electricity. So, your ideal is a private practice.
Correct.
Again, not your only option, but your ideal option.
So get into calibration logs, because Rosario texted me that someone's here to see us.
Oh, it might be that doctor.
Yes, it is. It's doctor.
Doctor, I won't say his name.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Anyhow, so
Calibration.
So I received an email recently asking for one of our clients, how do we find somebody to calibrate our equipment? And you can do a phone book search, right? You could do a Craigslist search. You may or may not return any results. But if those fail, what I recommend is you call local other private practices in your community and ask who they use.
Yep.
They all use somebody to calibrate their weight scale
Here's the
or other
hack.
equipment.
Next time you go see your doctor for
Yeah.
your own reasons,
Yep, your personal doctor can tell you.
as
who
a
they use.
patient, yeah, ask them or just look at the stickers on their scale. Sometimes these calibrators leave their stickers and you have a phone number.
Yep.
Right? So we know a calibrator, the guy who calibrates our stuff, calibrates hundreds of
Yeah, everybody.
clinics in Southern California. Not just research clinics, just medical practices. So that's the easiest way to do it. Go to your doctor, or just call your doctor and ask them. Or your physician might even have their equipment calibrated. So now we're going to get into getting studies, and that's just a whole separate podcast. This was just the technicalities for how to get started. Now the real work begins. Find studies. Go on to clinicaltrials.gov. Network. Then once you have a study, it gets even tougher. Who's going to be your coordinator? Is it going to be you? Do you know what you're doing? You may know how to work on your business as a business owner, but do you know how to work in your business?
Could be a problem.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because you own a McDonald's doesn't mean you can fill in if one of your employees gets sick or quits.
Yeah, can you flip a burger? Can you operate the cash register?
Same thing here. If you're a business owner and you're good at working on your business, meaning getting studies, getting doctors, finding staff, but then you don't know how to work in the business, meaning doing the actual work of coordinating primarily,
Right.
you're kind of gambling. Because if something happens to your coordinator, it's not their company, they don't care.
That's right.
It's up to you, and that's going to be my next podcast will be related to operations and whether you should be a dictator or a democracy when you run a site. But the operations is tough. That's like everything. So if you think finding an EIN number, creating a website, and finding a study by emailing people on clinicaltrials.gov is the hard part, you are in for a rude awakening.
Rude, man.
Yes.
Yep.
Because running a study is much more difficult than finding a study.
Well,
Come on.
sure, it's more intensive and all of that. But what I'm saying is, they all have their own difficulties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and getting your first study can be very difficult.
Of course.
Very difficult.
But it's going to be even
And
more
it's even-
difficult to run your first study.
Sure, but at least at that point, running it, at least you see a revenue stream, right?
If you can get patients, which is another challenge.
Sure, but at least you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Right.
When you're trying to get that first study, you are in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And you see no light.
I use this analogy with new clients all the time. All you're doing when you're a new site owner, and probably what we're going to tell these people here who are here to see us today, I mean, they should have been in here for this, all you're doing is upgrading your problems.
Sure.
Like, first it's opening a site, then it's finding a PI, then it's finding a study, then it's finding a coordinator, then it's finding patients, then it's keeping the monitors happy. You're just upgrading your problems. They never go away.
Sure.
And all those other things repeat on each study.
Absolutely. But this is true of all business.
So people that think that they're going to make a lot of money, just get rich quick doing this, or they're mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a stable business. It's steady. It's high margins.
You can make a lot of money.
You can, and it's high margins.
A lot of people have there's doctors that they do this exclusively because the money's so good.
But it's not fast.
No. But I mean,
If anything, it's slow money in research.
well, once that snowball has gathered some momentum, I think.
It's consistent.
And you can add on to that, right? You
But
can
it's
make that
still
snowball
slow.
bigger.
It's still slow. I mean, the quickest you'll get paid, and that's with a really good sponsor, is within 30 days of,
Yeah, monthly.
right?
Monthly.
That's at best.
Yeah, but the point is once you have enough, say you have 7 studies and they're all paying, right? That snowball's getting bigger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So anything else on the technicalities of starting up? Because we're not getting into how to find a PI, how to find studies, how to find patients. We've exhausted those topics. We're going to continue to come back to those topics. This is just the very technical aspects of what you need to start a clinic.
Did we miss anything?
I mean, your doctor should have a license, and that license should be in good standing.
Yeah, there's a few things that we missed, right? There's like
Equipment.
SOPs.
SOPs.
Those will be requested.
So what should someone do? Let's say they don't want to hire us, because we give you SOPs once you're a client.
Right.
What would you do if DSCS was not an option for you and you're a new site owner? How would you get a SOP?
So I wouldn't bother with an entire booklet of SOPs. I would find an SOP for informed consent. That's all I would bother with initially.
Now you could probably find a lot of those things. A lot of these SOPs and policies you can find at universities.
Right.
Because especially if they're public universities.
Yep.
Like I used to borrow a lot from...
Did you say tape?
Whatever. I would borrow a lot from UCLA when I first started out. So overhead policy. But I've never looked for any other policies. I've only looked for overhead policy because I wrote my own SOP. But yeah, I mean it's out there. If you Google a university's near you, public university research department, if you Google like informed consent policy for UCLA research, clinical research, you'll find something.
Sure. And that's what I would
Don't make me do it now, but you will find something.
Sure. And that's what I would use. And that's all you need initially, right? To fill out feasibility questionnaires and that site selection visit, that's all you really need to know.
The first thing they'll ask for is your process of consent SOP.
Right.
So if you have that, you can wing it until you figure out the other stuff you need. And you might get lucky and find a university that lists their entire SOP there.
Yeah.
And then all you need, don't just copy and paste. I've never done that, except for the overhead policy. But even that I changed. But look at their table of contents, and anything that's applicable for your clinic is what you need to include. And sponsors will ask you at SSVs, do you have a policy for IP destruction?
Whatever it might be.
Or IP transportation?
And that changes. I mean, we've added probably 3 or 4 new sections in the last year. So
Yeah.
all the time they're asking for new things. And you just tell them at these site selection visits that, or site initiation visits, or wherever it may occur, that I don't have it now, or create one and I'll email it to you.
Yeah. And it's easy. Sometimes it's just like 2 paragraphs.
But you don't want to say that for the ICF.
Yeah, for the ICF you should have one in place.
Right.
And luckily you could find those. Okay, anything else we're missing for the technical details of starting up a site?
Another thing you might need is you might want to have some temperature logs.
Oh, have an IP room? Right.
IP room with some temperature logs to track the temperature of the room.
You need a double locked IP room, but all this is on our website, the
Right.
Clinical Trials Guru. How to bare essential equipment needed to start a site.
Right.
We include a tour of a clinic, video. It's like 8 minutes. You're hosting the tour. But yeah, you need an IP room. You need a room for monitors, a dedicated coordinator room. You don't really need much. That's the thing. That's the thing about research. It's not, despite being such a highly regulated industry, there's surprisingly very little that you need to run a study at your clinic.
Yep.
I mean, very little. Most of the the burden of regulatory is on the sponsors when they do their regulatory pathways, and we're starting to learn that a little bit now with the CRO and some sponsor-related work. But for a site, you don't need to worry about these kind of things, really. So that's it. That's it, people. Thank you very much. Hopefully this helps, and we'll catch you all later. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.